Well, we hear about it all the time in recovery. The need for it, the necessity to lean in and live out of this place called surrender. But what is surrender? What does it look like? And what does it look like to live in this attitude of desperate need? We're going to talk about it today.
Recovery can be hard, but it's worth it. There is hope knowing we can find healing one step at a time with Jesus and healthy community. Whether you're struggling with a hurt or a hang-up or a habit, you're not alone. During this podcast, we share real stories, practical tools, and powerful truths that inspire you to keep moving forward. No matter where you are on your journey, there's hope ahead. So stick with us as we walk this path together through Celebrate Recovery.
Well, hello, welcome to Hope in Recovery, a Celebrate Recovery podcast through Fellowship Bible Church. We're super glad that you're here today to join us for this recovery conversation and bits of life change stories in here. We're super glad for you to join us today. And hey, if you have been listening to this for a while and you enjoy this, hey, help us out. Give us a 5-star rating. Share this with your friends. Really helps to get the word out with what we're doing here, just to help to spread the hope and healing that is found in Jesus. But hey, you might have noticed that the voice behind the microphone is a little bit different today. We're filling in for Rodney today, but let me introduce myself. I am a grateful believer in Jesus. I struggle with anxiety and depression, sexual addiction, and grief. And my name is Andy.
What's up, Andy?
Hey, man. And I get to serve as the ministry leader for Celebrate Recovery over at Fellowship Fayetteville. And I've got a good friend and brother here with me today. And so, man, introduce yourself. Tell us who you are and what you do, man.
Yeah, so I'm a grateful believer in Jesus. I struggle with sexual addiction, codependency, food issues, and pride. And my name is Michael.
Hey, Michael.
Yeah, and I right now I'm doing worship, but kind of in a transition season, stepping into a ministry leader role here in Rogers, and but really excited about that and doing some small group stuff and all the different things. So excited about that transition coming up. But
I love it, man. Super grateful for you, man, and love getting to serve alongside you. And so I thought you were one of the best people to bring in for this conversation.
I don't know about that. We'll find out here. So.
We'll see, man. But this conversation on surrender. We hear about it a lot in Celebrate Recovery. And so let me just throw this out to you, man. Whenever you first got into Celebrate Recovery and you heard people talking about surrender, what was going through your mind? What did you think that they meant? And how did that hit you?
Yeah, I think when I first came, principle one, right? Realize I'm not God. Admit that I'm powerless to control my tendency to do the wrong things and that my life is unmanageable. That idea of powerless and stepping out of denial, all those things, growing up being a Christian, there was this part of me where surrender and being powerless and admitting and all that stuff was kind of like, okay, I've done that. I've surrendered to Jesus. So I'm stepping into this program telling me that I need to surrender again. And almost this idea of, I wonder if there's maybe a nuance or a different level of, or maybe a different definition of surrender that maybe I'm missing in my life. And so starting to realize, okay, man, I think there is kind of that one-time surrender, right? I surrender my life, and Celebrate Recovery talks about that in the step study stuff. What does it mean to surrender my life versus surrender my will?
Yeah.
And so recognizing that, okay, maybe, I've surrendered to Jesus. Hey, Jesus, I need your help. I can't do life without you. I want to live my life for you. But then there's kind of this other layer of surrender, daily, momentary, monthly, yearly, all the different things. So that's some thoughts I have.
That's interesting, man. Just thinking through what I'm hearing you say is, so you grew up in church, and you've been a follower of Jesus for a long time, but you found yourself stepping into Celebrate Recovery because there was some struggles going on in your life.
Yeah, sexual addiction, pornography, acting out, all that.
Yeah. And then your framework for surrender was surrender my life to Jesus. And now there's this other side of surrender.
Yeah.
It's interesting. When I first came in and I was hearing surrender felt like a bad word. Growing up, I think
hands up. You know, kind of like, you beat the other enemy. Now you're subservient to me kind of deal.
Yeah, surrender kind of in my mind is like I wasn't able to achieve what I set out to do, and so now I have no choice but to give up.
Yeah,
and then all of
admit defeat,
and all of the things that kind of come with that of like, man, I'm a failure, I'm no good, I guess I can't do it. All of those things, and now I'm stepping into this place, and it's, hey, let's step into surrender. And even principle 1, I think, is a good place to kind of look into that of like, realize I'm not God. I admit that I'm powerless. And so, man, I think it's interesting to say, why do we need surrender? So what would you say to that, man? Why is surrender necessary?
Yeah. Not to get overly, theological or, maybe for lack of a better phrase, like too Christianese, kind of, because I want to, but I just think about going all the way back to the Garden of Eden. Yeah. Right. There's kind of this element. God creates Adam and Eve. They have everything that they need. They have God, they have sustenance, right? They have each other. And what does the enemy come in and do? He kind of says, hey, do you really have everything you need? You might need something more. And so almost this idea of pride, right? I can do this on my own, or man, there's something that is missing and I need to go take it for myself. And maybe God hasn't given me everything I need. And so for me, that idea of pride is like deeply seated into all of our hearts. And to my heart, this idea of it's just I can do this without God's help. And just that's kind of, and almost like this fight for independence, right? I need to make myself an independent being so that I don't need anything from anyone ever. And like the only truly independent, self-sustaining, all never existing, not just all eternity forward, but eternity past, like the ultimate being who is self-sustaining and there's only one, and everything within me goes, I want to be that. Yeah. Instead of being dependent.
Dude. You are leaning into something so big right there. You said something just a second ago. I can do this without God's help.
Yeah.
And I think what's interesting is, you mentioning growing up in the church as a follower of Jesus.
Yeah.
And this idea, because I think I resonate with that of like, I know who Jesus is, but I'm not going to let him be in charge of my life.
Yeah. It's like, I'll ask him for help. Yeah. Every once in a while. Because who doesn't need help? But it's like, but I can figure it out. Yeah. Like, I can get on the internet. I can Google, I just finally got ChatGPT on my phone, and I'm starting to use it. I've like given in. I've been so like I'm never going to use this. It's like, I'll figure out the answer. Yeah. Right. I don't really need help.
Yeah.
In that kind of idea.
Well, and I think what we're touching on there is the reality that why do we need surrender?
Yeah.
Because in the heart of every person, if we've got a pulse in living, deep down there's this desire that I have to be in control.
Yeah.
Whether I grew up knowing Jesus or whether I didn't, there's this innate desire within me to want to kind of play God.
Yeah.
And I love I don't know, I think you've read Life's Healing Choices, that great book by John Baker, kind of as laying a framework for Celebrate Recovery, walking through the 8 principles. But in there, in the first chapter, he talks about how we attempt to play God.
Yeah.
No matter who we are, in these ways that we try to control our image, other people, our pain, our circumstances. And I know hearing this idea of surrender, but then being introduced to this idea of like, hey, Andy, you need to surrender because you're not God.
Mm-hmm.
And in fact, you've been trying to live your life your way under your own plan, trying to control everything.
Yeah.
And one of the things I realized in my life is that if I try to control my pain, it puts me in bondage to my pain.
Yeah.
And that leads me to a lot of the behaviors that led me through the doors and Celebrate Recovery in the first place.
And ultimately, I feel like a simple way to put it is I was designed to be and to fulfill a certain purpose.
Yeah.
And my life is way more satisfactory. Actually, my life is completely satisfying when I choose to operate in how I was designed, right?
Yeah.
And so when I was designed to be dependent. Like that's just, I was designed to be dependent on God. That's who I am. That's what I've been called to, is dependence on Jesus, dependence, and that's my place in this world. And I can look at that of two ways. I can go, well, I want to, no, I want to rebel against that. And when I rebel against that, I try to operate out of my design, and then all of a sudden comes hurt and pain and issues and all these things. Not saying that if I surrender, that those things aren't going to happen, because we live in a broken world.
Yeah.
But internally, when I fight against my design, there's constant turmoil.
Yeah.
And external turmoil. But when I go, oh, actually, I need to surrender to Jesus, I need to do that, I actually operate within my design, and then I start to have internal peace, because, oh, this is what I was meant to be. This is like how God designed me. And operating outside of that leads to not just the external and external, but internal, So it's just, I feel like it's, again, going back to the garden. It's going back to the reason why I need to surrender is because it's how I was designed.
Yeah.
I was designed to be dependent on God.
Well, and that's so good. I need to surrender. It's two parts, because that's how God designed us to live. But a part that comes before that is there is a God and I'm not it. And I remember getting into recovery, kind of sitting around guys that have been a part of this process for a while and have kind of been good models for me. In various different ways, kind of the question came up is like, hey, man, Andy, could it be the case that you've been living your life the way that you think it should be lived and under your best understanding? And could it be the case that your best understanding isn't enough?
Yeah. Yeah. You don't actually know everything.
Yeah.
I don't actually know everything.
Maybe my best thinking is what got me here.
Mm-hmm.
And so maybe I need to surrender to the idea that I've got all the answers. And when I can surrender to that idea, I can be open to the reality that maybe God designed me for something better that I haven't seen.
Yeah.
And rather than surrender being this place of I can't achieve what I put out, and so now I just got to give up, and there's all this shame, maybe surrender is an invitation to go, hey, I don't have the answers, but God, you do. And maybe there's a process that you can bring me into that I can start finding healing from these hurts, hangups, and habits that I've got in my life.
Yeah. Yeah. It's kind of the idea of, I remember hearing from my parents, I don't remember them ever telling me, hey, you can do whatever you want to do. Like whatever you set your mind out, you can accomplish that. It was always, man, whatever God has laid out for you, like you can, like that's going to be, you can accomplish that. Like God, the plan that God has for you, that's what you can accomplish, because that's what's going to be most fulfilling in your life. And so it kind of goes against some cultural things, right? Surrender is not only, there's kind of the stigmatism with it because of kind of maybe history, but also just culture, don't give up, keep going. And again, it's nuanced, right? There is kind of an element where I can't give up. Just one more, one step in the right direction. There's kind of that, but
but it's how I take that
But
step.
it's how I take that step and the heart behind it. So
Yeah. Well, this is rich conversation, and we're going to take a quick break right here. And after the break, thanks for sticking with us. We're going to talk a little bit about what does it look like for us to live out this surrender and kind of put skin on this a little bit. Stick with us, and we'll see you right after the break here.
Hey friends, when you go to a local Celebrate Recovery, you're sure to find a few common things. First, you'll find loving people, fellow strugglers who won't judge you or try to fix you. Second, you'll find people who have experienced healing from their hurts, hang-ups, and habits in CR through the power of Jesus Christ. Next, you'll find a safe place to share what's going on in your life and hear from the experience of others. Most importantly, you'll find a place where you can connect with Jesus and others and find healing from your life's issues. No one has to go through recovery alone. Every Friday night, we have our Celebrate Recovery meetings at Fellowship Fayetteville and Fellowship Rogers. At 6 p.m., we have a great meal for connection with other recovery brothers and sisters. Followed
Then
by
we
open
meet
share
for large
groups
group
at
at
8,
7
Same
p.m.
schedule on both campuses. Different teachers, different worship teams, but the same great experience. We'd love for you to join us this Friday night. It's never too late to start or start over again. For more information, go to fellowshipcr.org.
Well, we're back.
Yeah.
This great conversation on surrender. So we've talked a little bit about kind of, hey, why do we need surrender? What have our perceptions of surrender been? But let's talk about, hey, Michael, what did it look like for you to start living in surrender as you got into this recovery process? How did this start changing your thinking and the way that you as we were talking before the break, the way that you took those steps forward?
yeah, man, as you were saying that, I was like, man, I would love to kind of go, oh, absolutely. But the reality is I'm still figuring a lot of this out.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like, I'd love to say that, surrender for me has looked like all of these things, but, and there's some truth to that, but man, I'm still trying to figure out what surrender is, and just, and every time I think I got it, there's kind of this hard reality life. God has a way of putting me in circumstances that reveal, like, what have I not yet surrendered to him? And actually that's a kindness. Like, he could just ignore that, but he kind of, puts me in those.
That's so good. What's funny is, like, even in that response right there, you're actually giving us a really good insight into surrender.
Yeah.
Because, and I appreciate.
I plan that, everyone, so no, I did not.
No, but seriously, man, like, yes, surrender is something that we are going to live in for the rest of our lives, but it starts with what you just modeled for us, a humility and an understanding that we don't have it put together.
Yeah, it's a constant. Actually, you told me this years ago, and he's like, what am I, he's about to say. And I think you had said maybe your sponsor had said, I can't remember, but you get to the end of the step study, right? In book 4, end of book 4, it's kind of like, what's next? Like, now that you've gone through this whole process. And, but I remember you saying, I kind of wrote in there, speaking for you, it's like, I wrote in there right back to step 1, like full circle. I mean, I've, yield myself to God to bring this good news to others, blah, blah, blah. Step 1, admit that I'm powerless to control my tendency, and so, that kind of what you were saying ties into that. Yeah,
that's good. So I think, man, that first place we lean into to start living out of surrender is starting to develop this humility. And humility is always a hard thing to nail down, because as soon as we think we're humble, we're right back into our pride.
Yeah.
But
if you think you're humble, you're probably not.
Yeah. But it's this space of where we start to go, all right, I need help.
Yeah. Yeah. Every day. Yeah. Daily dependence. I think we see that in the scripture. Like, I know we kind of threw out some different scriptures here, but just a few that I had pulled up is one that's always been near and dear: trust in the Lord with all your heart and do not lean on your own understanding. There's almost like an activeness to that, right? Do not lean on your understanding. And then in an hour, I go, oh, I can't lean on my own understanding,
Well, and it's kind of, I always like taking scriptures like that and flipping it, because it makes it a little more clear. The scripture doesn't say, trust in myself with all of my own understanding.
Yeah.
And lean into my best thinking that got me here.
Yeah, exactly. And it's just, it's so like that. It's, I'm not the center of the universe, and I have to daily acknowledge that. And then, in all your ways, every single way, acknowledge him, and he will make, talking about Jesus, will make your path straight. And man, if he could just, if the, whoever wrote this, whether it was Solomon or whoever wrote this proverb, but it's like, if he could just take the word out all in there, man, that would be so much easier in all your way. And so going back to your question of practically what does it look like, it's kind of taking every aspect of my life and filtering it through that lens of, okay, have I surrendered in this area? Have I surrendered in this area? Because again, I think there's that kind of like overarching, I've surrendered my life to God, but then my will within relationships, my will within, how I relate to this or how I act in this situation or whatever. It's like, I feel like the Lord is constantly like putting these different kind of pieces of my life in front of me and going, okay, like, are you surrendered in this way? Like, and
so it seems like that kind of that first step of surrender is, it's a humble acknowledgement that we need help.
Yeah.
And then kind of the second,
all the time.
And then it's almost like, for me, it was almost like putting on a new pair of glasses to see the world in. And through these lens, I start looking through this idea of, in every situation, Lord, can I step into this with the most beautiful and simple prayer?
Yeah.
Help.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a prayer, right?
That's a prayer. That's one of the most simple and best prayers, is that as I go into this conversation, as I go into work today, as I try to make it through lunch today, as we're putting the kids down tonight, God, I have this humble acknowledgement that my best thinking normally isn't best for me. And Jesus, would you help me through this? And being able to trust in that place, that when we ask for help, Jesus is so ready and willing to give it.
Yeah.
Two places I think of in Scripture, and these are anchor verses for me in my life. The first one is 2 Corinthians 12:9, where it says, my grace is enough for you. This is Jesus talking. My grace is enough for you, for my power is made perfect in weakness, which blew my mind the first time I thought that.
Yeah.
It doesn't say my power is made perfect in your strengths, Andy.
Yeah.
It's actually, no, when I let Jesus into the most broken parts of me, he actually fills the gaps for me. And so practically, Jesus, I need you as I walk into today. As I face temptation today, I'm not strong enough to handle it.
Yeah.
God, would your power be made perfect in my weakness?
Yeah.
And so it's this lens, this mindset that I start to look through life in. And then with that, and I love this, James 4:10. It says, humble yourself before the Lord, and he will lift you up.
Yeah.
There's this promise that if I go to God with dependence and a need for him, he's going to scoop me up in his arms.
Yeah.
And I don't, it's amazing to experience when I step into a situation with an attitude of surrender. Man, it's wildly different in my own heart. And I can tell when I'm trying to slip into, let me see how I can manage and manipulate this.
Yeah.
Versus, God, direct me. I need you.
Yeah. I know, I mean, we could talk about this forever, but our time is limited. But just even a question for you, Andy, I was just thinking about this, of so much of surrender in different areas of my life, and I would say in recovery in general, is getting things from my head to my heart.
Yeah.
I can say all these things, like even right now in this moment, I can sit in this podcast and kind of say all this. But how do I, and the question for you is, man, what does that look like? How have you been able to, or what's the best method for you to get this idea of, I got to surrender this and I know I got to do this, but like what has God used in your life? Or like, how does that get transferred to here where it's like I don't just know surrender, I feel surrender. I feel this element deep down of like, I actually, God, I got to give this to you. And I feel that deeply. It's not just something I'm going, I know I need to surrender, but it's like, oh my gosh, like,
yeah.
you know.
Well, I think one of the biggest things with this, and this is why what we do in Celebrate Recovery on our general meeting night, you know, for Fridays here on the local level, what we do in our open share groups and our step study groups is so important. We can't do surrender in isolation.
Mm-hmm.
What helped me was actually speaking out the things that I needed to surrender to Jesus. And so being able to be in an open share group and to say, this has been a really hard week.
Yeah, this is why.
This is why. This is what's happening. I am struggling with this. I am tempted with these things. And then in surrender, I can think through, man, I really need to surrender this. But you know what helps me to surrender it is to reach out to my sponsor and say, hey, man, I'm really struggling with this. Would you pray for me in this?
Yeah.
And so there's a community element that we need. Our recovery is a group project.
Yeah.
And so there's that aspect. But here's the other thing. It was so important for me to get around people that modeled this.
Yeah. Kind of see it in action.
Yeah, it's fun. We've got the same sponsor, and he was one of those guys that, like, watching the way that that Tim stepped into situations, the way that Tim trusted in the Lord, the way that he gave wisdom and insight into those kind of hard spaces. It gave me, this is what this looks like with skin on.
Yeah.
Like, I don't have to control this.
Yeah.
You know, I even texted him earlier this week with some stuff going on, insurance and car accidents and all of these things happening.
Yeah, right before this podcast, we were laughing because there's all these things kind of in both our lives that are kind of like, all right, God, you are giving us practical examples here of, you know. And that was one thing I was going to say, you know, for me, there's this weird realization, and I don't like this realization, but it's almost like, if I didn't go through situations that gave me opportunities to surrender, I never would. So it's almost like the idea is, in order for me to live in my God-given design, I have to be put in situations where I'm, maybe for lack of a better phrase, forced to do that.
Yeah.
You know, where almost it's like I would not choose to surrender until I get in a situation where I have to choose to surrender or choose to not surrender. Right.
Yeah.
And so it's almost like, man, there's a purpose in the pain in some ways.
Man, I think what you're touching on is why we say the Serenity Prayer every week.
Yeah.
That part in there of,
accepting hardship as a pathway to peace.
Yes, accepting hardship as a pathway to peace. Trusting that you will make all things right if I surrender to your will.
If I surrender.
If I surrender to your will, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change.
Yeah.
And the courage to step into the things that I can. All of those things, I love that, man. God gives us opportunities to surrender because they're opportunities for us to grow closer in dependence on Him.
Yeah.
And ultimately, dependence on Him
Yeah.
is what we need more than anything else.
Yeah.
Man. Well, Michael, this is a rich conversation, and we could just spend all day talking about this.
3 more hours. Let's go.
Yeah, I know. Mostly about ways that we're bad at this and we need Jesus.
Yeah, exactly.
But really grateful, man, for your insight.
Yeah.
And man, let me ask you this, brother. If there's somebody listening to this right now and they're in a space where they're trying to figure this surrender thing out, what encouragement would you give to them, man?
Yeah, admitting that I need help is actually a pathway to success. It's not a bad thing. It's not admitting that I need help, admitting that I don't have the answers, admitting that, man, I've made some mistakes. I've made some small mistakes. I made some big mistakes. All of that can feel really hard or feel defeating at first, but then it's kind of this analogy, which those of you who are listening, you can't see. I'm having my fists are closed. Those of you that are watching can see this, but it's like if I hold on to this, there's kind of this like I can feel it. It's kind of hurts. But once I release it, it's almost like there's kind of this, if you do that and you release, there it kind of has this pain that almost goes through your hands, and it's like, oh, but then all of a sudden it's like, oh, okay, that actually feels a lot better. But there's kind of this initial like pulling away and opening can feel kind of weird, but ultimately that surrender piece is the only way that I'm going to live in my God-given design and rely on Him. I need help. And it is that serenity prayer.
Yeah, the only way to heal the pain is to let go of the pain and let God walk you through it.
Yeah.
Man,
Yeah.
I love it. Michael, super, super grateful for you, man. Grateful for your friendship, grateful for your example in this recovery process, man, and so grateful for this conversation.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, hey, if you're in this place of learning how to surrender and you're needing help, man, we would love to see you at Celebrate Recovery. You don't have to do this alone. And could it be the case that when we're willing to say, God, I don't think my strength is enough to make it through this. God, I need you. Maybe the words of Jesus in 2 Corinthians 12:9 are true. That my grace is enough for you, for my power is made perfect in weakness. Our strength isn't enough, but when we're willing to humble ourselves before the Lord, He promises to lift us up, to draw us near to Him, and to show us what it looks like to walk in this design that He's given us. Our best thinking is what got us here. But Jesus is the one that cleans us up and helps us to move forward. So God bless you, and we'll see you next time.